Okay. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, April 24th, 2023. Time is 6:02 p.m. We'll go and do roll call. Keithley.
Here.
Sweat.
Here.
Rojas.
Here.
Kennedy. Here. Swick.
Here.
And Peyton.
Here.
Okay, we have everyone in attendance tonight. If you'll stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, excuse absences. We have none. Item D, agenda approval. We'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, we have a motion by Peyton to approve tonight's agenda, second by Rojas. Any further discussion on the agenda before we vote? Okay, hearing none. We'll go ahead and vote on the approval of tonight's agenda. All those in favor, Keithley. Sweat.
Aye.
Rojas.
Aye.
Kennedy. Aye. Swick
Aye.
and Peyton.
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved, 6-0. Consent agenda. This is item E. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and one vote. A council member may request to remove an item for discussion and a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. Tonight, the only item that we have on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, April 10th, 2023. That'll be found on page 5 of your packet. And we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda by Sweat, second by Peyton. Any further discussion on that before we vote? Okay, hearing none. We'll go ahead and vote on approval of tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor, Keithley.
Aye.
Sweat.
Aye.
Rojas.
Aye.
Kennedy. Aye. Swick
Aye.
and Peyton.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 6-0. Consent agenda is approved. Mayoral proclamations, we have none tonight. Item G, public presentation prior notice. We have Aaron McKittrick with HEA on the docket tonight. Welcome, Aaron.
It was sure where to stand here because they're all in the middle. And so I don't have like a really big, long presentation, so I'm just going to give a quick update on the things that I think you guys might be interested in. And if anybody has any questions or anything they want me to take back to HEA, that would be great. So first thing, because it's happening right now, is HEA is currently doing elections, and hopefully everybody has figured out how to do it. It's a little different this year than previous years because you have the option to vote either by mail or online. And so everybody should have been mailed a paper ballot. But if HEA has your email address, you also got an email. And if you look at that paper ballot, you can either send it back or you can use the links that are on there to go vote online. You can't vote twice. If you try, just the first one will be counted. So, but, and so if anyone has any trouble with that, just, reach out to the member services, but it'll hopefully be a lot more convenient for people, and you'll still have the option to vote the old way if anybody wants to do that. And so that's going on right now. As usual, there's one election in each district. We're in District 3. I'm not up for election this year. So it's Jim Levine and Mike Jones are your two choices, and you should be able to find their bios and everything on the website. And that goes through May 4th, I think. And yeah, so do it by then. And then at the annual meeting, the results will be announced. If anybody wants to travel up to the annual meeting in Kenai, I'm supposed to encourage it. It's kind of a long way to go. You do have the option of potentially winning a year of free electricity if you're there. And there's usually like some Subway sandwiches. So it depends on whether you want to go all the way up to Kenai for that. Another thing that's going on is HEA is currently in the process of attempting to purchase Seward's electric utility. So most of all the connected grid, there's mostly several fairly large utilities. There's HEA, there's Chugach in Anchorage, MEA in Matanuska, and then Golden Valley up in Fairbanks. Seward is one lonely little town with its very own municipal electric utility. And they're having trouble with basically economy of scale, keeping that going, keeping up with things like new regulations, cybersecurity, all of that. And so they are trying to sell it. And both HEA and Chugach put in bids to buy it. And then the Seward City Council chose HEA's bid, but then the Seward voters get to decide whether that goes through or not. And that's happening on early May, I think the 2nd. And so from our perspective as HEA members, basically it's also economy of scale. Seward, you add them, you add a bunch more members using more electricity, and the fixed costs don't change very much. So it ends up saving money for everyone, especially since they have almost all of our system uses more electricity in the winter. But since they have such a big tourist industry there, they use more in the summer. So it helps balance things out. Let's see what else is going on. We have several projects that we're looking into through as far as renewable energy. We've applied for past few years renewable energy fund grants from the state. And one of them last year was for funding to put up Met towers to measure wind potential at 4 different places. So we're going to put up 2 of those this summer. One of them is on hold because it's a really difficult mountainous place and doesn't seem necessarily worth it in the short term. And one place, there is a tower there already, but it's unclear who owns it and if there's data there already. So before putting up another one, we're going to see if we can find out who owns that and if we can get data off of it. This year, we applied for a couple more. One is there's a company looking at geothermal prospects on the other side of Cook Inlet. And our proposal was to basically, if they find anything, do the study, what it would take to connect the electricity back across to our side. So we're not, HEA isn't looking at doing the geothermal exploration directly, but looking at if they find something, could we connect to it? The other one is Hillcorp has oil platforms that they need to dismantle because they're done producing oil. But if they can find something useful to do with them, then they don't need to be dismantled. And so they want to look at the potential whether for wind energy on those old platforms. And whether any of those grants will actually happen depends on 2 things. One is if the state legislature actually renews the Renewable Energy Fund program so it doesn't die. That seems likely, but the legislature is always busy at the end of the session with the budget. And so it is possible that they just don't actually renew the program. And of course, whether any of it gets funded depends on whether the legislature appropriates actual money to fund the projects this year, which again, nobody will know probably till the last minute. Let's see. And one of the kind of reasons behind all of this is I don't know how much you guys have heard in the news, but it's really everybody's pretty worried about gas supplies in Cook Inlet right now. The state comes out with periodic reports, and the most recent one that they came out with just this spring and presented to the legislature shows basically this really steep decline of Cook Inlet gas that starts being less than meets our current use as early as 2027. And, you know, that's a prediction. So who knows exactly what will happen. But, you know, basically Cook Inlet is a declining basin, which doesn't mean there's no more gas there, but it means that, you know, the longer this goes, the more investment it takes to get every bit of gas out, because all the easiest, cheapest stuff gets extracted first. We used to have a big export industry, which gave a larger market. And so now basically we have this very tiny, vulnerable system where it's basically Hillcorp is almost the only seller, and you know, N-Star Natural Gas and 3 electric utilities are pretty much the only buyers. And so basically that's kind of spurs a few things. One is talk of how we're going to get natural gas. A lot of folks think that it might need to be imported, and also how we can use less natural gas, which is some of the impetus for looking harder into renewable energy. And let's see, I think as far as other HEA renewable projects, there's a small project with the borough that got actually, you know, not enough money to do the whole thing, but a significant chunk of money through a federal earmark, which is to basically extract gas from the landfill up in Seldovia, which is a joint project with the borough and would be a win-win for everybody, because the borough has to buy and burn a lot of natural gas to evaporate the leachate off the landfill. So they're spending a lot of money, you know, buying energy for the landfill, but the landfill could instead be a producer of energy. So it would produce all the heat to evaporate the leachate that the landfill is making, and then that excess can make electricity. So be exciting to see that go forward. And otherwise, we're just talking with, you know, any developers or any other utilities that come to us with good ideas to see if anything pencils out. Those are the main big things going on that I was thinking of, and I'd be happy if anybody has any comments or questions. And if I can't answer things directly, I'm happy to take them back to other people at HEA that can.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, Aaron, thank you for your update tonight. I guess it is actually pretty amazing that we're talking only 4 years in the future of the natural gas issue maybe blowing up big time. How do you feel HEA is really proactively going after this? They must be pretty freaked out actually themselves, trying to figure out how this is going to continue the status quo that we've been having. Could you give a little bit of overview where the board is with that?
I mean, honestly, I think everybody should be more scared than we all really are, because one thing that's true for HEA anyway is that even though the state predicts the actual shortfall in 4 years, our gas contract ends in less than 1 year, which doesn't mean that we won't be able to get another gas contract, but it does raise the question of how much it will cost and who's going to be willing to sell it. And so I think that, and this isn't just HEA, this is, you know, folks who at all the other utilities and people who use natural gas for heat. There have been warnings like this before. And so I think it's easy to think, okay, Cook Inlet will pull it out. People will invest more. The producers will invest more and will be, spared. And that might happen. But, each time that gets harder to pull off. And last time we were in this situation about 10 years ago, the state was in a better financial position than now. And they put in about $1.3 billion of tax credits, cash tax credits into Cook Inlet to encourage production, which probably did actually encourage some production, but the state they don't have billions of dollars to plow into something like that now. And if you did, you'd expect to get less return on that each time, right? Because you go for the easiest stuff first. I think that one of the things, that obviously both that all the electric utilities and all the folks on the, other side of the bay that have gas for heat can do is, the more people conserve, the longer that lasts, right? So the state's prediction is totally flat use. That's how long things last if everybody uses the exact same amount every year in all the sectors. But what we've seen historically is there's actually been a significant drop in gas use from both efficiency at utility levels and conservation at individual levels. And between those things and renewable energy, hopefully we can stretch that out more, because if we have to import gas, it's going to be expensive.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Anyone else?
Question.
Yep, go ahead, Heidi, real quick. Here.
I just question if they're
Not yet. We're still basically looking for money. It's an expensive thing, but but it's like right in line with what some of the federal infrastructure money wants to do. And so, hopefully we can get some of that. But a lot of those things, they're still kind of like coming up with the rules for exactly how you apply for the money for different kinds of transmission upgrades. And so there's not yet okay, this is the application and we'll know when it gets back. But we're hopeful. But it's all that kind of thing's always a crapshoot.
Thank you. And my mic wasn't on, so I apologize for those on Zoom. I just had asked if there was any updates on the South Kachemak Bay power project or power upgrade project.
Okay. Walt, you had a question?
Yes, Aaron, I guess it was within the last 10 years, or maybe 10 years ago, the proposal for a larger solar project that we as members were asked if we would be willing to bill ourselves $10 a month to kickstart this project. And I was among just a very few people in the whole HEA umbrella that said that I would give $10, and it fell flat on its face. But it was a large solar project. Does anybody talk about solar?
Well, yeah. And actually, one of the nice things about talking about solar now is the way the prices have come down. Nobody is going to come ask you to pay extra. Actually, solar in South Central Alaska is actually cheaper than gas power right now. Matanuska Electric signed a contract with a local company that their solar power is a couple cents cheaper than their wholesale gas power. And that same company is talking to HEA, and they were actually really close to having a project here on the Kenai Peninsula, and the price looked really good. But the landowner that they were leasing the land from pulled out at the last minute. So they're looking for another site. So hopefully they'll find another site and then come back to HEA with an offer. And I expect that it will actually be cheaper than what we can get otherwise, not needing to ask folks for extra money.
Thanks.
Thanks, Walt. Thanks, Aaron, for that. Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Aaron. Appreciate the update. It's been a while since we've seen you. So-
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. And if anybody has anything like outside, just, feel free to get in touch with me. You can find me.
Great, thank you. Okay, next item H, public presentations for items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the public that wishes to speak?
No hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Looks like no one from the public tonight. Item I, committee and advisory board reports. Do we have anything, Walt? I see you're in attendance.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I have a report. I guess I come to you as your representative for the Cook Inlet RCAC, Regional Citizens Advisory Council. And we had a meeting on the 24th. No, today's the 24th, on the 14th, that I attended, went up to Kenai. And basically it was just a business meeting rehashing this and that, but there were several interesting things that came before the group and were discussed that might be of interest here. One was that Michael Opheim was reelected for 3 years. So we really have an outsized representation on that board up there. There are 13 board members and we have 2 for probably the smallest representation of any of the board members. And the other thing that touches close to home is that Alicia Chartier has been working with Nuka Research pretty much very steadily on a program to update the AOOS, the Alaska Ocean Observing System. And there's so much stuff online, and I'm not a computer guy, but Al came over to my house a couple of weeks ago because I'm pretty much computer ignorant, and tried this system that she's been working on me as a guinea pig. And she helped me out and I helped her out a little bit, making mistakes and blunders and whatnot to make the system a little bit easier for people like me to go into it. And what it is, what she's working on is called the GRID system, which is the Geographic Resource Information Database. So if someone looks at Seldovia, they will, they're coming in with a bunch of, let's say, oil spill boom or whatever. They will know that we will have a crane that's capable of lifting 5 tons. They will know that we have a fire department. They will know that we have a hotel. They will know that we have restaurants and these types of things, the airport and whatnot. And this system is available online, and you can go to hundreds of places in the inlet where there's a little dot and punch on it and find out what resources are available in that particular area. And it's really a fantastic source of information that's available to everybody. Anyway, The other thing, and Aaron touched on it, is about what Hillcore is up to in the inlet. They basically own the inlet. There are several other operators in the inlet, but Hillcore is the main guy. And I might mention that there's another gas producer that does not do the HEA stuff is Blue Crest, which is just out of Anchor Point. As you go down into Starisky Creek and you look off toward the inlet, you can see, if you look hard, you can see their operation back in there. There's a derrick and whatnot. They produce some oil, which is trucked up to Marathon, but their main thing is gas, which goes into the gas line that comes down and supplies Homer and whatnot. That, I don't know, that may be a future source of gas, I'm not sure, but they're planning on drilling more wells in the future. But as far as Hillcore is concerned, it seems that we're looking at the gradual retirement of the platforms in the coming years. The existing platforms may be looked at to be used for alternative purposes. Perhaps a mean of putting off, delaying, or repurposing the eventual dismantlement, removal, and restoration of the way that it used to be. And when they took over from their various buyouts up there, they inherited those platforms, and they are responsible for their eventual removal. And I think I talked to you before about the fact that they're thinking of trying to work with I guess UAA on hydropower with using the platforms. And so they're trying to figure out how to, it's very costly to remove those platforms. And if they can extend some extra life out of them, that's in their, to their advantage. Something else that I've been questioned by several fishermen on is that Hillcore was a successful bidder on a tract that was offered just prior to the end of last year. And this was kind of a federal mandate that came just recently to open up some more area for drilling, and they were the only bidder. They were a successful bidder on 2,000 acres directly off of Anchor Point in the federal waters area, basically right in the middle of the inlet. And they have no plans, immediate plans to drill there or to take advantage of their lease. They seem to be focused on their acquisition of BP's business on the North Slope. They bought out BP several years ago, and they seem to be focusing on that for now. And another little interesting thing was that Corexit, which is the dispersal that was widely used in the Gulf of Mexico spill, and it's the go-to thing for offshore spills, is the maker stopped making it. And there's no real replacement for it. So that may not be an option unless someone else comes forward for that type of a product. And that's about all I have. Anybody have any questions?
I have one. Well, did they say why they stopped making that dispersant?
No.
It's interesting. Okay, anyone else? All right, thanks, Walt. Appreciate it. Lots of information as usual. Thank you. Okay, that was the only one we've got for tonight for committee and advisory board reports. Okay, item J, administrative reports. J1 is the finance report. This is the quarterly report. And this is on page 9 of your packet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Finance Officer Yeager was not able to be here this evening, so if you guys have any questions, I will make sure to take them back to her. I know she was looking forward to being able to discuss a few things on the report, specifically that the boat haul out. Now there was some write-offs over the last couple of years with boats being disposed of. So at this point, the boat haul out is in the black according to cash and accrual methods, which is pretty impressive. And we're going to, of course, continue to work on keeping that in the future, but she was very excited to see that. So any other questions you have, let me know and I can try to answer them or take them back to her.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from anyone on council on the finance report tonight? Okay, we've got so item J2 is the Harbor Masters report. That's going to be found on page 13 of your packet.
Yes, and I apologize for that. I know that Harbor Master Peterson was planning on joining the meeting, but it looks like she must have had a delay. So again, any questions, let me know and I will take them back to her.
Okay. Any questions from council on the Harbor Masters report tonight? Okay, item J3 is Public Works Maintenance Report. This is found on page 16.
Guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah, we're winter operations is over with, so we're thinking about spring, and things are springing right ahead with the typical summer people business and water turn-ons and all that business. And at the same time, we're kind of picking up the messes left over from the winter, which includes the heavy equipment need to be demowed and some maintenance done on them before they're put away. We also have the roads are thawing out, so we got the pothole season. It's pretty bad, and Johnny's is out there raking the roads around as best he can, considering that as much melt off as running into the streets and making them muddy. It's not the easiest thing to grade when you're grading through potholes of water, and he's making the best of that. And won't be long. The street sweeper will be in town, and we'll help Tyler out sweep Main Street, and he'll help us out and sweep our city streets. And some of them have a lot of gravel on them that we'll be able to reclaim and maybe fill some potholes in the parking lots. And yeah, we had Mr. Will Brunn helping us out last quarter. It was great. He's a heck of a good hand to have on the streets with us, and then in the facilities and in the equipment and all that stuff. And be back to me full time and Johnny part time, how he likes it, and that's just how it's going to be. And Seen, one thing I didn't include in the public works part is it looks like the multi-purpose building is getting close to being done on its phases. We haven't followed that too closely. We let those guys kind of work on their own. And, but as you guys can see, the windows have been done and the heating system's been messed with and you know, that's going to be almost done. Now, then we'll have ourselves a building that will be maybe a little less maintenance intense. We did a boat launch last Thursday or Friday last Friday, and that was a little different having to dig the boat trailer out of the snow. And normally the snow is melted out of the boat yards, so you know, a little change there. The ground's real soft in the yard. It's full of soft mud, and so the trailer is really sinking into the mud, the dirt. And that's not the best, but still okay there. But you know, there's, you know, water plant operations are normal. We picked up another hand in there. Mr. Radzy's going to be he's going to kind of be the weekend guy. We're gonna alternate weekends, and I get a little bit of a break, and he's going to get knowed up on how to operate the plant. He's done a few backwashes with me, and it won't be long that he'll be able to maybe do a backwash by himself. That's going to be a great help. Someday I might not be there to do a backwash, and it'd be good that they'll have a hand that can do it. And you know, that's, you know, we've been staying up on our sampling, which is good. We're kind of ahead on sampling now instead of being behind. And so we should look a lot better. Our best practice score should stay up, and we'll be in, you know, good standing with the regulators on that. And that's always good for the city. And you know, now that we're in springtime, the infrastructure's is going to start getting a lot of infiltration from sewer infiltrate. The sewer system, we get infiltration from the melt off. And so far we've seen a little uptick in the pumps running, and but that's it hasn't been a lot, but it's, you know, it's good. You can see that the thaw is bringing water in the system. So that's the next thing, is we'll be pumping a lot of melting water. But maybe we'll be able to find some of those infiltrations once we can get to manhole covers and stuff when they're exposed. But still a lot of the stuff at hand we need to do first, like the street sweeper stuff and water turn-ons, that kind of stuff. Hasn't been a lot of applicants for the maintenance position in Public Works, so we're still going to have the 1.5 people. And you know, we'll have to, things will get done, but done real slow. And then you know, there will be less projects. But you know, now that the most important project Public Works is going to be for this quarter, be doing leak detection for the water system. Water system's distribution is using quite a bit of water right now. And so once get things kind of stabilized, we'll start sending out one of the maintenance guys, myself or Johnny, and start listening for water leaks, because we're using about 50,000 gallons more a day right now than we were in November. And so those are all mostly leaks. Anyways, any questions or comments?
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Yeah, you answered my first one off, if you had seen any more big water leaks, but has that been just a gradual increase to 50,000, or do you think it's a couple of significant leaks that just popped up overnight?
No, it's been steadily increasing all winter long, and there hasn't been any notable increases that we could put our fingers on. The last leak we had a few weeks ago was Mike DeWelder's house had sprung a leak overnight, and he used You know, he brought the usage, he used about 50,000 gallons overnight. And, when Johnny turned the water off, I could hardly tell on the graph up at the water plant when he turned it off, because even though it was a lot of water being used, it wasn't as much as all the other leaks are. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, we'll find them. They're probably all leaks on copper lines or unattended house with something broken underneath it. It's just that nothing's bubbling up out of the street like we like to see. That's the best water leak we have, is when it bubbles out of the street, because we can find it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. No, thanks for that. And then the street sweeper dates, do we have those locked in yet, or
No,
nothing yet? Okay.
no, I just talked to Tyler this afternoon, and he said that the machine broke down, was broke down for a week. So they're behind over on the other side. So when they're a week behind, that just puts it a week behind getting here. So
Okay.
that's the way it is with that. But we're first on the list to get it when they're done with it, which is good. So,
Okay.
Well,
That's good news then.
yeah. And some of that excess gravel, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to send Johnny out with the straight edge on the grader or the loader or something, scrape up some of that extra gravel. Cause it's just, there's so much out there that, it's kind of ridiculous to sweep it. And so it's kind of best to scrape some off. And it sounds kind of brutal when you're having a machine scraping around on asphalt, but it really speeds up the sweeping process.
Yeah, for sure. All right, good. Anyone, any other questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan, for your good report. Could you tell me how the or the sewer system infiltration, locating and repairs, how you are going to approach that? And is that just daily, weekly? What is your approach?
Well, the best thing is to watch when the pumps peak on the time, and as long as the pump doesn't have some sort of clog of some kind, when the pump increases, then the flow is, we keep track of the hours, and so when the time increases on it, the infiltration's at its max, and we can kind of go around and check manholes, and I have a couple that I follow that I think are infiltrating the worst. And the only thing is that at this point we can't open the lids to them because they're either froze down or covered up with dirt, mud, or whatever. So, that's it. On the sewer end of things, you have to physically look. There's not a lot of listening to do because it's not like a water leak that makes a lot of noise.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It would good. I'd like to note though is that the majority of infiltration is in town and not part of the sluice system. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, and so I follow the hours on the sluice system, and that system, it comprises mostly of Shoreline Avenue, East Edition, and like the boardwalk and all that, and then the boardwalk area. So any residence that's on the slough itself. And those hours are pretty rock solid. That pump rarely runs more than an hour and a half a day. And whereas the pump on the other side of town fluctuates by sometimes 4 or 5 hours a day. So that proves that in town, the infiltration is worse in other areas inside of town, and it does not have to do with the East Edition or the slough or the tides.
Oh, huh.
So
Yeah,
something,
I thought we were having a lot of saltwater infiltration. That was our big curse.
no, that crew came to town in
Okay.
2015 or something like that. And those guys reconciled most of those leaks. There were a lot of real simple service leaks from residents.
Mhm.
And they fixed a lot of that, and that system is really tight. And thank goodness, because the pump doesn't run very often, and there's just not a lot of flow from those areas, even though there's quite a few houses on that system. It starts all the way. The slough collection system starts at my grandma's house on Winifred. And
Mhm.
it goes all the way around. And then, of course, the whole East Addition, it's collecting from. And so that's a lot of services.
Yeah.
And it's still pretty solid, which is good.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
in town, we have a lot of infiltration, and that a lot of the reason of that is because most of the asbestos, cement, transite, sewer pipe is in town, and that has a lot of fitment issues, which causes infiltration.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jordan.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Jordan, appreciate the report tonight. Thanks for all the information. And that's all we got on that one.
You're welcome.
Okay, item K, public hearings. None tonight on item K. Item L, unfinished business. L1, intent of the 2% sales tax increase, Proposition 01-2022, to provide for the purpose of paying on the obligations incurred to finance the acquisition of the road grader and then funding the public works and maintenance department once the obligations have been paid off. And this is committee of the whole, found on page 18 of the packet. Heidi, you want to bring us up to speed where we're at on this?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just put a memo together of hopefully summarizing some of the previous conversations. There have been multiple over the last couple council meetings regarding the intent of the language paid off from Proposition 01-2021 regarding the 2% sales tax increase for the acquisition of a road grader. The discussion has been focused on if the city of Seldovia can utilize funds from the 2% increase that exceed the annual lease purchase payment agreement amount of $51,537 after the annual payoff payment is made, or if any 2% sales tax funds received above the annual lease purchase agreement amount need to be held until the entirety of the lease is paid off. So as you said, page 18, the city did receive a legal opinion that discussed that the ambiguity of the language paid off, that the language paid off was ambiguous, and recommended that the council review minutes from previous discussions as along with comments related to that language, and then discuss through and then address through a vote how the conclusion of what the intent of that language is. At the last meeting, a couple of motions were discussed, including one similar to the motion listed in this packet that says the intent of the 2% sales tax increase is to pay for the acquisition of a grader. Funds received will be reviewed annually during the fiscal year budget cycle for the consideration of the annual lease purchase payment, any additional funds received, and the overall acquisition of the grader through the 7-year lease purchase agreement. So just leaving it pretty open-ended that every year the council can discuss. I mean, I think that's a great vehicle moving forward during the budget, saying, you know what, we received this in sales tax. We made the payment, the payment's done. There's additional funds. We can keep it in this other fund until there's enough built up to either do a payment, which according to NC Machinery, if you want to make an additional payment, it needs to be equal to 3 payments. And then according to CAT, if the city wanted to pay off the lease, we could do that at any time. So those two are options. I did want to point out that in the legal opinion received, there was caution that from the municipality appearing as though the lease purchase agreement. So that's pretty, language there to be utilized moving forward, that it's a common lease purchase agreement. It's not a loan, it's not a debt. We're in agreement that we're going to make these payments, and then at the end of that, $1 payment, and then it's ours, right? But with that being the reasoning, the caution for council, that the reasoning for discussing making a prepayment should not be to lower the interest on the principal obligation, because that makes it look like a debt. But I think that there are other really valid reasons for wanting to pay early or pay off. And that is in large part because the funding is there. And that's right. We're tracking it. We're seeing the funds there. The city no longer wants to be a part of this lease because we have received enough funds through sales tax that we're done and want to own this equipment outright. That is something that I did make a recommendation in this memo that the city would hold those funds and have that discussion annually until such a time as we either have enough for multiple additional payments or to pay it off in the long run. The other thing that was asked about is the budget process and just what that looked like. And so I did clarify in here that in the FY22 budget, an AMLIP account was included for the 2021 ballot proposition, along with an expense account for the greater financial obligation annual payment. And that is included in the Public Works General Fund account, as we discussed in the work session prior to this meeting. So the $51,537 was budgeted last year through that account and will be budgeted again this year and each additional year so that permission to spend those funds is there in the budget. And then during the budget discussion, that's when if there is an overage in the revenue received from the payment amount due, we can show that in the budget form as being transferred to the AMLIP account dedicated for those funds. That I really like the budget process for these kind of discussions, but they can happen anytime through the year. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just nice that there is a dedicated time that discussion will take place. I also wanted to just include that following the process will allow the city to adequately track the 2% sales tax revenue received. And then I would love, hopefully, if this is the way council wants to go, to start planning for some future projects with that funding once the grader is paid off and owned by the city, no longer leased. And just to kind of give an opener of some of those future projects. And of course, this isn't an exhaustive list. This is just what's on the current agenda is the roof repairs that are still needed, as discussed in the prior meeting, siding and painting and plumbing for the multipurpose building. That plumbing, I just mean under the Seldovia space, that wasn't a part of the renovations of the building. The heating was and ventilation, but there's some old plumbing that springs leaks fairly often under the Seldovia space, in that crawl space. We've talked about new refuse truck, new shop door for the city shop. It has holes in it. That would really help, but we are going to go for funding for that as well. Additional road repair and material. I know Jordan mentioned needing some material. We're scraping up material and reusing it at this point in time, and that there is some funding that we will receive, but we can always use more. Value-added building completion, new to Seldovia backhoe, other fleet items, and I don't need to keep going on that, but just to kind of have an idea moving forward of how some of those funds can be used once the grader is owned by the city instead of leased. And I just wanted to bring that forward because I know it was mentioned at the last meeting that those funds could be used to cover some of the public works expenses. And while I think that is valid, it is, I did appreciate that comment from the member of the public that we should be planning for some of these extra projects as well that have been deferred for a really long time. Anyways, with that, the same information is in here from the last meeting other than this memo, and next steps is to consider a motion supporting the annual renew of this 2% sales tax received and the acquisition of the new road grader through annual payment. And I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any more information. Go back to NC Machinery or CAT if you guys have more questions and move forward.
Okay, thanks, Heidi. Real quick, so I think the issue was, one of the issues was we had a long drawn out motion that we wanted to make sure that it was cleaned up. is this the cleaned up version of it right here on page 18 or?
Yes, and you'll note that it doesn't actually address the fact of if it was an intent for an annual payment or end of the year or end of the lease payment. And I think that is very true to the fact that that I don't think that intent was ever really formalized, other than that the city will increase the tax 2%, and then that increase will be utilized for the acquisition of a road grader, and then any additional tax or tax after the acquisition of the road grader would go to Public Works. So that is in place and that will continue. But this leaves it open-ended for council to be able to annually review those funds and make a decision at that time.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we can open it up since it's committee of the whole. We can open it up to anybody, whether it's public or council, for any questions, comments.
If I may,
Go
I just
ahead.
wanted to thank you, Heidi, and staff for looking in and getting all our questions answered on how to devise a plan moving forward for whether it be payoff or early payment. And the plan you guys have set forth based on what they've said we can do sounds great to me. So thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate all the time that's been put into this. I think we've clarified what our direction is as a council, paying off the grader, and then with the funds that are after the grader's paid off, go into for a major maintenance and repair. The motion, the abbreviated motion that we got on the version here on the paper, does anybody find that a little bit confusing, or is it just the way I'm reading it with the commas in it? Otherwise, I think it says what we were trying to say, but somebody help me out. I'm a little bit thinking it sounds a little bit confusing, but I think I'm not reading it correctly with the commas.
Thanks, Vivian. Yeah, I had to read it a couple times too here. That's why I asked that question. So
Okay,
I
okay.
think it does what we want it to do. So based on what we discussed. John, you got a comment?
Of course.
Yeah, of course you do.
I'm actually good with the plan as we've discussed over the last several months. Let's make a motion and move forward. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Anyone else? Public? Questions, comments? Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion then from somebody on council. It's on page 18.
Yes.
Just FYI.
I will, since it's already written.
Yeah. Well,
I will say as it is written, best to my knowledge. So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to move that the intent of the 2% sales tax increase is to pay for the acquisition of a grader. Funds received will be reviewed annually during the fiscal budget cycle for the consideration of the annual lease purchase payment, any additional funds received, and the overall acquisition of the grader through the 7-year lease purchase agreement.
okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Keithley, as she just read. It's long. Addressing the intent of the 2% sales tax increase and how to utilize those funds annually. And then second by Kennedy. Any further discussion on the motion before we vote? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion, Keithley,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas, Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Heidi, for doing all the research on that and getting that clarified so that we are utilizing those properly. Those funds, I should say. Okay, item K2. L2, Resolution 23-36, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, authorizing the city manager to apply for Village Safe Water Capital Improvement Project CIP construction funding for the Seldovia Wastewater Treatment Facility project and showing commitment to provide for operational costs of the facility upon project completion. This will be found on page 58 of your packet, and city manager will go ahead and present on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping to have a little bit of better news and have an opinion from VSW before we had this discussion. But with the way the timeline worked out, they're actually going to review it on the 26th and hope to get that back to us, or they'll submit the information for the review on the 26th and hope to get that back to us really on the brink of time. I think May 4th is their date to get it back for us. And then we're applying for funding on the 5th. So it's very tight now at this time. But we're going to make it where everybody is on board to move forward, as long as there is some kind of a consensus from the council on what direction you would like to go. That does weigh into their considerations. It doesn't, I mean, they'll still make a decision on what they recommend either way. But after having discussion with Anita with VSW, and she was planning on being here tonight, but had a meeting until 7. So she may have gotten held up. But she said she would take any questions that you guys have, and I can email them to her and get back. But after reviewing the resolution with her and then talking through the process, we did provide the 23-26 in here as provided at the last meeting, and then an amended version that just has some updates of language and reformatting of the position of those whereases, as well as provides an opportunity for the city council to pick either 1 or 5. Of course, you can pick any other alternatives that you want. That's been the focus as alternative 1. And this is, if you look on page 60, it lists out those alternatives. They're all back in the PER now. I have seen it, and it should have been in a link on the email sent to you guys and to the public for public notifications for this meeting, as well as it's on the website. It's just really big, so it wasn't printed. But this resolution discusses, it starts on 26, the options, and then line 33, whereas says both alternative 1 and alternative 5 are viable options. Followed by alternative 1 provides an immediate benefit to the community by rehabilitating the existing infrastructure at a lower operational cost for the city, but does not address the long-term issue of waste disposal. And whereas alternative 5 provides for secondary treatment and long-term sustainability of the disposal of wastewater without pumping, but has a significantly higher cost associated with the facility. And then there are in red 2 options, and just as a guideline moving forward, if council wanted to pick one or the other, they are both show approval of either option. But the first whereas shows a preference for, it says the city has a preference for alternative 1, rehabilitate existing septic tank as a viable option that meets the needs and septic capacity of the community at a lower burden cost. However, it does not address long-term environmental sustainability and need for it looks like there's an error there, and frequent need for pumping of wastewater. And the city would also support alternative 5, aerated lagoon. And the next whereas is the city has a preference for alternative 5, aerated lagoon as a viable option that provides secondary treatment, long-term sustainability for the disposal of wastewater without pumping, and environmental benefits. However, the city would also support alternative 1, rehabilitate existing septic tank as a lower cost burden facility that still meets the needs and capacity of the community. So if that's the desire of the council, it kind of buttons it up that you could have a preference for one or the other, but still support the additional one, or we can take it a completely different direction and just support one or the other, or a different one. And then the rest of the resolution is just followed up with that the city will complete a business plan prior to the obligation of construction funds. That is something that is necessary and will be part of that construction process before they actually start the work on the project. And then through this resolution, that the city of Seldovia would be ready to submit an application and is committed to provide for future operational costs and maintenance of the facility. So whichever one you guys pick, if that works for you as a good vehicle moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Well, talked about this a couple times,
I
couple
know.
options.
I know, but I got more to say.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up. Who wants to go? John, you want to go first?
Sure. I would support one, of course, and 5 is a second, but I guess I have, and maybe I'm confused. But there's the alternative 5, the lagoon would have to be, the material put into a sock and then disposed of. Have we talked to the borough about whether that could actually be disposed in the landfill at that point, or do we know?
I believe that's part of the process of it settling.
It's just going to be a
and-
hard dirt form, right?
Exactly. Is it's
Right.
just compostable
Compostable material.
compostable at that point, so it would be allowable.
It would be allowable. And I guess the other big one for me, and man, I hate to even bring it up, but I always thought the infiltration in the system was from out here. Okay. And out here in the slough. And I guess what really concerns me now is what's the plan with the sewer mains that Jordan's talking about that's causing the leak? And I guess, the infiltration, so that's not included in this.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
Through the mayor. So no, it is not. The VSW's biggest concern was the slough. So they're still pushing that forward. If that doesn't happen, then they don't want to work on the treatment facility. But you're right. There is other areas that the city has identified and that were identified in a 2014 study of the sewer. And we did apply for planning funding for those projects this year. When we hear back more on that, I can let council know, but we are still pursuing it takes time, but
Right.
the upgrades of those systems as well.
Right. Okay. Well, I have no issue with if you just look at the materials down there in the slough, it's in pretty rough shape. I get that. I just wonder, in light of where the real leak's coming from, what our plan is. That's all I had.
I think it's safe to say the entire system needs some sort of overhaul and not repair. It needs replaced. So it's either approaching or at its life's end on many parts of our system. So Vivian, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm in support of actually line 39 because it covers what you're talking about, alternative 1, but also then if we would be also in support of alternative 5. With the difference of the two, where we have about a $60,000 price, 60,000 plus increase for maintenance on alternate 5, we could probably use that 30 or more of that to actually take care of our issue of the sludge that we have in our present system. So I'm in support of item 39, whereas I think it takes care of what we would like, but it also says that alternative 5, if we need to, we would do that also. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Anyone else on council?
If I may.
Yep.
I think my only hang up in comparing 1 and 5 is the potential of not meeting the expectations for DEC and what the potential of us losing that grandfathered, whatever we call it, is that we have for being able to utilize our system. And since this is not like a long term, but we're looking at number 5 being something that probably wouldn't even be completed until I think it was 2028 at the earliest, is, by the time that we would get to where that would be done, where rehabilitating the tanks, number 1, is, I guess, is there any way for us to know at all the chances of losing that, because it would just really be unfortunate to miss out on this opportunity to have the project paid for through a grant for something that in maybe 10, 15, 20 years, we find out we have to do anyways, because we lose that opportunity. Price tag, the difference is definitely something that scared me, but it's that pre-planning, trying not to be in a place we're at right now, where trying to do it right. Buy
Yeah.
once, cry once.
Yeah, five is the right thing to do, right? I mean, it's definitely the right thing to do long-term for everything.
And
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I did include in the packet, starting on page, I think it is 64, that note from the Federal Register that talks about Seldovia being one of 76 communities. So this is the Federal Register from 1979, Rules and Regulations, Environmental Protection Agency. And it calls it a delayed compliance order for AP green for factories, da, 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 da. You go down, and then the other delayed modification of secondary treatment requirements for discharge into marine waters that's actually the one that Seldovia is under. So this is the rules and regulations is modification of secondary treatment requirements for discharge into marine waters. It gives a summary that the notice delineates EPA's position on the applicability of 40 SFR Part 125 to native Alaska villages and EPA's intention to consider other methods and alternative technologies for meeting the wastewater treatment needed in these native villages. And then if you go down to the next page, 65, it lists out those villages, including Seldovia. So it has been in standing since 1979. It is part of federal rules and regulations. There hasn't been talk about it being removed, but
yeah,
like you said,
with today's climate, and especially even in our area of things being brought up to actually give accountability towards that. And as I mentioned in the last meeting, that we have time to plan, and that's our goal as a council right now, is to be ahead of the game as we're fixing our deficit and being able to take funds and plan. And I'm kind of tied between, but I feel like it would be our duty to go to say that we support 5, because that would be us representing the best plan of action for the future of Seldovia.
I would just say that one thing about your comment there, I would say, given today's political climate and the makeup of the courts, there is nothing written anywhere that is sacred. That was obviously proven last year. So with that being said, and the push towards green and the environment and climate change, whether we agree with it or not, wherever your stance is, this will be mandated at some point. It is not a question of if, it's when. So yeah, no, I would agree. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, if we're gonna have, one is a Band-Aid, in my opinion. It's a Band-Aid. 5 is it's the long-term right thing to do. And if we're going to go for grant funding and do it, we might as well do it right. There's no sense in going through the effort of doing it, half baked. You might as well just go all the way and get it done. So that would be my selection also, is to do the line 44, thinking of that approach and VSW or DC, they're gonna choose whatever they think is right at the board level. I don't know what they'll go, where their mindset's at, but I would think that long-term alternative 5 is the right way to go. And one thing we do have is time. This is not going to be overnight. We're going to have many years to plan for this. We know we went through all the different iterations on the new water treatment plant. We saw some of the pitfalls where we short funded it in the beginning, and now we've come to the reality of what it takes to actually run a water treatment plant. It would be no different on something like this. And I don't think it's easy as just saying an aerated sewage lagoon out the road. I guarantee you there's a little bit more of a fight coming than that, right? So there's a whole lot of stuff that's got to happen, I'm sure, with easements, with land. So this will not be a short-term process, but in the end, it's the right thing to do is number 5. So
Is this a matching grant of any sort? What does Seldovia have to put into this grant? Anything? Matching any kind of funds?
No.
No,
So,
okay.
yeah, it's just like the water treatment plant will receive it and then we have to take care of it.
Yep, okay.
And
Yeah,
I would like to note just that because it came up on the last conversation by Councilmember Swick about what the cost for pumping, if that is included in alternative one, and it is included at $600 a month for pumping. So that is an alternative one, so just in case that, I don't know if we can get it that cheap, but that it's part of the
Well, that's
proposal.
great if you got a something
Place
you
to
can
put it.
call and a place to put it.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about as I'm reading this. Number one, how do we pump it? Is a truck included with that? Okay, I do remember that.
And it's included with both alternatives because either way, the septic tank will get cleaned out.
Okay, and then the disposal of wastewater, I can't remember, where will that go?
We don't have a plan for implementation at this point.
Okay, Wow.
It sounds like the most viable option is to ferry it over.
oh
So
my
however
goodness.
many,
Is that included too?
well, $600 a month. So, if you're thinking ferry tickets,
Oh, that includes pumping and getting rid of it.
I don't think there's an
No.
account of,
No
I
way.
think that's just pumping and
So
not not
then-
that we have to transfer a vehicle on the ferry system or
Probably
barge.
Like with the water treatment plant, it's going to cost us money. Eventually,
Either one, yeah.
yeah, either one, but I mean, number one.
Would the
just
ferry even
doesn't
take
sound,
it?
I don't know.
Is that even a?
Well, they won't take more than 100 gallons of diesel, so.
Some hay, yeah.
They probably won't, and then we will be stuck with it somewhere
Or barge it.
or barred, yeah, oh my goodness.
Just,
I think
Thir-
number 5
13
is
grand
the most
each
logical
time.
Yeah,
thing to do anyway.
neither one of these are going to be quick. So let me just think of that when you make your final decision. So. Okay, let's take a break for a second. Go to the public. Anyone from the public wish to weigh in on resolution 23-36? Well,
Just point of clarification for myself. I'm kind of a Johnny come lately on this discussion. If you go for number 5, it calls for a pond. Where would that pond be and how big would it be? I mean, everything flows toward that end of town. And so it would seem that if we keep the same sewage aspect without completely renovating things, that the pond would have to be down at that end of town. Is that right?
well, ironically, the majority of this expense puts the pond somewhere out by the dump out there somewhere. So, yeah, that's why this is so expensive. There's
Oh.
pumps and yeah, that's what they said. There's a lot of homework to do with that, right? Just getting approval, leases in place, all of that. And then, to dig those lines to get out there would be probably a little bit of a feat in itself, because I know there's a fair amount of rock. I mean, they've taken some of this into consideration, obviously, but I mean, that $17 million was 17 million. That price tag will probably be 30 million by the time this is all said and done. Wouldn't even surprise me. So it's going to be expensive.
And then the water from that project is treated, and it will flow into Fish Creek and Dave Chartier's place and all of that stuff. Wherever it goes, it will be treated, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, is that settling pond is basically everything turns to inert at some point.
And there will be a new outfall line that would go out into the bay. So right now we have an outfall line that goes out into inside beach, but there would be it's a pond, it'll have a liner that protects it. It does its settling, it's treated, it's aerated. And then when it's disinfected, it'll be pumped out into the bay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Hey, let's get you a microphone here real quick, just so everyone online can hear you.
Yeah, I've been in touch with a friend of the family named Ivan Vesley, and he's invented a secondary waste treatment facility that floats on water. And he's over in Europe anyway. We talked to him some more about it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we're going to bring it back to council. Any further comments, questions? Well, a couple of people have weighed in, so.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just say one last thing before the ladies get their nerve up.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I'm totally going with line item 44. It's a big dream. It's a long ways off. It's the right thing to do environmentally. It's going to be a big push shove thing to do and a lot of planning, but I'm totally comfortable going with line 44 whereas. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Vivian. And again, just for everyone to remember this, I mean, the ultimate decision was made at a higher level than us. So basically they're looking for some buy-in either way. I think either one of these gives them buy-in. That was pretty crafty the way these were worded. So I don't think either one of these are wrong. But I think that they can see where our heart's at depending on which one we approve. So. Yeah, so you're not doing anything wrong here either way.
Mayor Campbell,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I just have one little comment. We do have a responsibility to do what's right by the community, whether I like it or not. We have a responsibility for the future of Seldovia and what we're gonna do. I don't want to pay any more bills, but we're gonna.
So are you implying the environment as part of that as well? No, I'm just asking. I'm not. Absolutely.
I don't like the idea of the lagoon being out here. I think we could look at some other things, and I'm sure that'll come up at some point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think there's a big, huge public planning process as part of
Right.
this, right? This is a conceptual idea, and then you got to get to where the rubber meets the road, right?
Right.
And yeah. My first inclination too is why in the heck would we put a sewer pond out there when it would seem more realistic out here somewhere?
Well, I'm not willing to die on the post of where I think, but we can have those conversations.
Absolutely. It's concept to get the ball rolling on the funding stream. That's the most important thing here.
So why is it that it's being proposed for the borough land out the road? What were the
Go ahead.
Through the mayor.
Yeah.
Yes, so they did talk about a few other alternative placements in the the PER, and one of, let's see here. If I can pull up that correct page 67. And I think they actually changed it now because I'm not seeing the other alternative locations. They just say the landfill, but they did discuss the potential for it to be either closer out on Rocky Ridge Road or to be closer on this side of the town. I think they were just utilizing the borough site as probably the most easily accessible, but there are still opportunities to pursue other sites. We do have an old landfill site, and it mentioned in here about that. I know, because that was my thought too, is like, why can't we use that acreage that we have? And it did make a note of it. That says, okay, here it does. It talks about all the locations. There's 4. that they proposed, and location B is the former landfill site. And it says this property has been closed for several years and is now overgrown with alders and other vegetation. While the site has sufficient area, is relatively flat, and is located near the existing septic tank, the prior use of a landfill prohibits permitting a sewage lagoon. This location is dropped from consideration because it is within, is also within ADEC areas not suitable for sewage lagoons. They looked at a private property south of city limits, so closer to town than the borough site, and then location A, which is where the existing septic tank is, and that's not
Not a big enough site.
it says, yeah, the property where the existing septic tank is located could provide adequate space for a sewage lagoon. This location, however, is dropped from consideration because it does not meet ADEC guidelines for sewage lagoon siting. Additionally, the existing septic tank would need to be demolished in order to build a lagoon at the existing septic tank site, and this would cause the need for a temporary portable treatment system. So they have 4 on here, and I'm sure we can talk to them about others. I think Operator Cameron had a site that he was interested in, a little bit past the landfill site on the right, that belongs to Alaska Mental Health Trust. I don't know if that's something that we could utilize, but we can have discussion on that.
Well,
And-
option 5 seems like the option 5 is the obvious solution, in my opinion, because. But well, as mentioned from the member of the public, that is an anadromous creek out there right by that. And I mean, there are some, it is on the other side, but I mean, that the way the water tables work out there, like, doesn't matter how you spin it, you are gonna have, I don't know, it seems like a long way to pump. Anyways, I like number 5. Hopefully we can come up with a
Okay.
closer site.
I
you. Are we
I think
asking
I
another
can
question?
clarify a little bit because I remember looking very deeply at this right when I saw it the night it came out that there was that Heidi had to kind of give her 2 cents the next day. And I was like, my first thought was it would go where the current system is. And of course that's over by my house. And so I'm like, okay, is there going to be a poopy lagoon by my house? And there was a map actually that was color coded. You can look at that explains why, like where it can't go and why. And a lot of it has to do with like the population density. There's rules on like, it can't be because of the wind and smells. And then I'm sure there's also things that need to be looked at like water tables. But I know that was one of the reasons that it couldn't really be close into town because it can't be in near dense population.
I do notice that Randy's hand came up late, but yeah, absolutely. Randy, Sweet, if you have a comment.
Yes, so I was just gonna speak in favor of, option 5. I'd say the environmental considerations and the, kind of doing the right thing. The other, consideration would be, if there's further development of Seldovia, then our capacity to handle, the sewage may be better if we have that system versus what we have now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Randy, too, is to make sure that we are doing our part to plan for future growth. I mean, I think it's going to come sooner or later. So, yep, that's a super good point. Anything additional, Randy, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Appreciate that. Okay, back to council. Time for a decision. Okay, so I'll help you guys. Is there any objection to number using the whereas on line 44? Okay, which basically has us selecting alternative 5. That's alternative 5, Jen. Then 1 is the secondary. So, okay, if hearing no objection on that, then we'll just look for a motion to approve resolution 2336 as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution resolution 2336 as amended? Do I need to
And
include the
selecting
line,
line 44 for the whereas.
selecting line 44 as the whereas?
Perfect.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion from Peyton to approve resolution 2336 as amended. And also selecting line item 44 as a preferred whereas. We have a second by Keith Lee. Any further discussion on resolution 23-36 before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of resolution 23-36 as amended. All those in favor, Keith Lee,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
I,
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
I,
Peyton.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, looks like we have one last item for business tonight. That's item M1, resolution 23-37, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia approving the memorandum of agreement between the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, Alaska Marine Highway System, and the City of Seldovia regarding the use of the city dock and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute the appropriate documents. And this will be found on page 66 of your packet. And Heidi, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As said, page 66. So this is a 5-year MOA. This comes about every 5 years. And it's actually for 1 year and then allows for 4 individual 1-year renewal options that automatically self-execute unless a written termination is provided. The 4th and final 1 year will expire on April 30th, 2023. We did have a couple amendments to the contract last year to allow for 4 ferry line handlers and one of them to be a potential split position between the ticket agent and the ferry line handler, as well as the city did provide some cost of living increases to those positions that were not accounted for in the previous contract. They are accounted for in this MOA. I did try to ask for more and was denied. But if the MOA starts on page 67, the language is all pretty standard and same as previous MOAs until you get under terms of agreement. Item 4, authorized dock use and associated fees. The dockage stays the same at $200 for each call. An AMHS vessel makes at the docks. We get $200 per visit. And then the line handling was increased from the $17 per hour for each line handler to $17.43 per hour. And then the ticket person is $17.43 if they just do tickets, but if they're doing both positions, then it's $20.56 per hour for up to 5 hours. And that is what our current rate is now. So it is in line with it, but it is something that we still subsidize a little bit with the additional benefits and insurance for the dock. The $200 a stop really doesn't cover it all, but it covers the majority of it. Trash pickup is a little bit extra as well because it's $80 per trash pickup instead of $80 a month, which is something that we've had implemented for quite a few years. I don't know when that started, but as long as I've been involved in the process. Water service remains the same at $150 per vessel. And then the other change is that the phone line was like $51 for years and years. And we upped that to $60 per month because it is costing the city about $58 a month for that phone line. So it gives a little small, very small cushion. It was pretty hard to negotiate. They didn't really have a lot of extra give available in their current budget, but this at least will cover the cost of those employees for the most part, and the phone line, and then the additional services. Everything else remains the same, and I'm happy to hear any feedback that the council has on this MOA.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Go ahead and open it up to council for initial discussion.
I don't have anything additional on it, Mayor Campbell.
Okay. Anyone
Mr. Mayor?
else? Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
yeah, no, it looks like it's that it's working in both favors for both the Alaska Marine Highway in the city of Seldovia, so I'm in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Vivian. Okay, anyone from the public care to weigh in on resolution 23-37? Okay, bring it back to
Mr. Mayor.
council.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just, if I may, on page 69, at the very end, it has City of Unalaska, Heidi Gagel, City Manager, Seldovia. Is that just, that's something we probably want to change, I would assume, or not? Don't know, it's there.
I did
Good
just
one.
notice that. Thank you, Councilmember Rojas. I will ask
We
them. to
are
put that in
in
the-
Alaska and we just don't know it. Do they have more money than us? We probably are then, or should be.
Yeah, thanks for catching that, Vivian.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll fix that administrative error. Okay, any other comments on resolution 23-37 and the MOU?
Yeah,
Yep,
I
go
guess
ahead.
I do, Mr. Mayor. So this is the last time before the next time it goes again for 5 years. And at that time, is it possible we can renegotiate some wages and different things? Is that, or
Yeah.
not that we're going to, but can
Well,
we?
Through the mayor, with the 1 year with the option to renegotiate every year for 4 years, additional years, I think, and that's what we did recently to.
Oh, every
bring
year.
it up.
Okay.
We
okay.
can, it's just whether we
Well,
choose to or not.
We probably not, unfortunately, but yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, well, it looks pretty straightforward, other than the administrative agreement, the few changes that, or the administrative error, and then the few changes that the manager made that they agreed to. So we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve resolution 23-37.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 23-37.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve resolution 23-37. Second by Sweat. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, all those in favor of approving resolution 23-37, Sweat,
aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Swick,
I,
Peyton.
Aye.
And Keithley.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 6-0. Resolution 23-37 is approved. And thanks everyone for that discussion. Where am I at here? Where'd I go? Hang on, sorry here. There we go. Flipped it the wrong way. Okay, item N, city manager's report.
Yes, thank you. So just a brief update of things that are continuing on with the city. We're, you guys know, always busy. Summer, I didn't mention that in the report, but with this warmer weather, we're definitely noticing a lot of summer activity, and that also means a lot of return people to town and a lot of issues and discussion happening in the city office for the summer. So I'm looking forward to getting through the budget process and then being able to have a little bit more focus there. Through the report, just wanted to reiterate, and then I know the harbor master mentioned it in her report, but she was able to stand up a harbor loaner rod program called The Real Deal. I've got a nice picture here in the report with 10 salmon rods, loaner rods available. So if anybody needs a loaner rod this summer, go check one out from the harbor master's office. That is a part of the grant, the smolt grant. So the purchase of those, we had the rods, but the purchase of the reels and the stand it was all part of the grant and something that we agreed to do and to provide. Also part of that grant is the smolt education materials. Martin Media has submitted a few sample logo designs. They are in this packet. after the report and language for additional signage to be installed around town. So if you guys have anything, feedback right now, that's great. Otherwise, definitely get with me throughout the next couple of weeks and let me know if you have any preferences for anything presented so far. There are 2 trips planned for video footage, a day trip on May 27th, where they're hoping to catch some video of the human powered fishing derby. So if anybody knows anybody with a skiff or a vessel that wants to take these guys out on a tour to see some of those human powered fishing vessels, they would love to go for a ride and get some action shots on the water. They'll also be performing a couple of the interviews. They have between 6 and 8 people they want to interview in town. One of them is Council Member Rojas, just so you know it's coming, but probably not on the 27th. That'll probably be more on the June 5th, 6th trip. So yes, definitely get back to me if you have any thoughts on their proposal so far. And if you know or want to volunteer to give these guys a tour around on the water. Then they'll be coming back on the 5th or 6th to finish up interviews and video material. They're not going to make it for the smolt bus because it's on the 11th, and that's just puts it out way too close to the deadline to have this information submitted to the city before the grant closeout on the 30th. Multi-purpose building renovations update as of April 18th. And they talk about an update that they have ordered the boiler refractor kit to replace. That is done. The boiler has been updated and the new water heater placed in, new burner placed in. So that's been taken care of. We hauled away some of the old parts today. And we're storing the boiler because it's still in, or the water heater because it's still in decent condition as a backup in the value added building for now. Heating for Seldovia space has been replaced and wired. Solid surfaces are nearly complete. Doors should be coming, and they're expecting it to be pretty much done by the end of this month. So obviously there's still some sheetrock and paint that needs to happen. I'll talk to them about the condition of the bathrooms and see where we're at with that, because it looks like we need some finish up work. But that's we're getting towards the end here. We do have to hold a second public hearing for the grant towards the end of the project, towards the completion of the project, to hear from the public about the process of the grant and how the renovations went. We were initially anticipating having that on May 8th. However, it looks like that agenda is going to get a little bit heavy. We've got some lease renewals coming up and some other items. So depending on how those work out, it may be pushed to the 22nd. And we're also anticipating an in-person visit inspection from the granting authority during that week of May 8th. I think everybody just loves to have a trip to Seldovia. Just fine. PID application. When this is finished, I'm so excited to get it online so that people can look at it. AML. I can't even express enough the work, the appreciation for the work that they put in. They put the packet, they took the RAISE grant application, which was for the Seldovia Transportation Network planning project for both the harbor and Jacklock, if you remember. They took that and additional information that we had from the condition assessment and from staff and converted that application to a construction project application for Jacklock Bay replacement project. So we're pushing hard internally right now to find funding for that piece of infrastructure. And they sent me a almost a final draft today, and it's beautiful. Like, I can't even express enough how they've done amazing work. We're getting some final pictures with some better resolution in it. I'm still not very hopeful that we'll receive it this year, just because it's very competitive, and most communities are seeing a 3-year turnaround. But AML is also on the lookout for other granting opportunities for us. There's an EPA economic opportunity, and then there's the state rural ports and barges landing grant that will be available for, and that one won't be, it'll be competitive but not as competitive because it's on a local scale. So super excited to see some push forward on that. We talked about the Healthy and Equitable Communities grant submission earlier in the work session, so that was submitted last week for that $20,000 for senior meals. AMLJIA will have a representative here tomorrow in Seldovia. They're going to be here, and they're also going to meet with the city of Homer about confined spaces. They want to go and look at all our confined spaces, talk about some potential training, and maybe do some other initial inspections. Just trying to make sure that we are up on our snuff, because as they keep forewarning us, OSHA has put out a fleet of personnel, and they are doing inspections on the random. So just trying to make sure we are where we need to be. Sewer projects update. We kind of already discussed that. The Denali Commission grants in, the state revolving fund grant is in. That's for the SLU, or application is, that's for the SLU project. And we have 2 construction applications due by May 5th with tonight's resolution, and the other completed applications. I think we'll be ready for both of those. That's the SLU sewer improvements project and the sewer treatment facility project. There was a third and that we were anticipating, and we were notified just at the end of last week that we are actually not ready for that like they thought we were, and that's for Block Street Sewer, which is extremely disappointing because that's one that needs to happen. So we'll be keeping an eye out for next year's planning funding and submit the information for that to hopefully get that on the docket. We also have reached out to VSW to see if there's any potential emergency funding opportunities for the exposed water main on Airport Avenue. The main was exposed during residential development and initially thought abandoned, but on closer inspection, it was revealed last weekend that it is indeed the city's single water main coming into town from the water treatment plant. From the construction for the development will move ahead, and the main is going to be temporarily safeguarded. We'll insulate, backfill, and put some either planking or sheet will be placed over it so that it's still a drivable surface. The reason it came about is the driveway grade required by the state. The requirement was to dig down and make that grade, and when they dug down, the grade exposed the main that existed there. You know, it was built in a time before the road was the grade that the road is. So while it may have been at an all right depth initially, it is no longer at a great depth. So that project's still going to move ahead, and the city will work with VSW and try to solicit some kind of a funding and a plan for the main moving forward. It's about 100 yards that we're figuring that we're going to end up having to rebury or relocate to make that depth. We also need to work with the state to receive an easement for the infrastructure in that area. We have easements for most of the rest of our infrastructure, but because that piece is quite a bit older, and there's this, you know, which came first, the chicken and the egg, where the city's pretty sure that the line came first. There isn't an easement in place, but so that's something that we've been aware of and we'll work on through the process. Hiring and staffing updates. Sam Scrivener was hired on as line handler, as mentioned at last meeting, and he's also providing backup refuse. He went out today with Wade, and he will be going out Wednesday with Jamie, so that in the event one of our refuse handlers are not available, he's willing to step up to the plate, which is great. The Harbor and City Office will still provide, Jamie Williams has signed on as the custodian of the multi-purpose building. This came about because we really could not fit that piece. We have somebody handling the city office, we have individuals handling the harbor, and this building was just kind of sitting, not being as well cared for as it should. She's available and has a little bit of time after her shifts on senior meals, and is happy to take on that project. So she will be handling the custodian duties just for this building, and just this space. Radzi does Seldovia space, and I'm sure VPSOs can do theirs, and the fire hall can do theirs, but and the library does theirs. So it's mainly council chambers, bathrooms, stairwell, public stairwell. Robert King was hired on as a harbor assistant, and will start mid-May. Jim Davis is also will be back and returning as a harbor assistant and as the camp host at the RV park. The city is still in need of an additional senior meals person. That's a pretty big one that is coming up. We're gonna have to figure out something in the immediate. Harbor assistant, one more harbor assistant. We have an interview tomorrow. that is scheduled, a line handler, and that's because we have 4 now, but Cindy Mom leaves at the end of next week. So just trying to fill that 4th person. It's a pretty good system. It's in our contract that we'll have it, and it helps because when somebody does call in, we still have 3, which is the minimum that we really need to be able to tie up the Testamina. Kennecott always needs 4. And seasonal public works operator, that's a pretty big one as well, that we'd like to see filled. We've had a little bit of interest. I'm hoping we have more as people start moving about in the weather. Last update, the chief of police position was removed from advertising, and a request for a second VPSO was made with APIA. Jared Patterson will graduate from academy this Thursday. Then we'll spend a week in Anchor Point with AST. Then we'll be on duty when his return to Seldovia. Michael Nemeth with APIA also plans to visit Seldovia at the end of May, beginning of June, and let us know that interest has already been received for the second VPSO position in Seldovia. He has 1 applicant from Seldovia and has received interest from other officers already in the program. So other than that, there's the quick updates. Gearing up for summer. We'll have a discussion on Seldovia space lease renewals at the next meeting, work session prior to the next meeting, as long as everybody's available to discuss that Charles Schwab account for the Seldovia Permanent Fund. We did publish the RFP for the creation of a drainage map and stormwater management plan, and have already received some interest on that. So that's fantastic. FY20 audit's still in process. We're still waiting for the cap. We discussed that. Both parts for the EMS power loader here, that's huge. That was a grant that the city received. So the department is still waiting for somebody. They have to have somebody actually from the company, Stryker, come in and install. But that's part of the grant funds too. So that's really cool to see that go ahead. Clerk Diamond began the process for the permitting request for DOT for the 4th of July. We'll be having those discussions soon, I'm sure. And everything else still waiting for some of the grant funding announcements that we've applied for. The dam maintenance and operations manual was approved by Alaska DNR that Radzi so graciously put together for us. And we did receive a draft certificate of approval to operate the dam. So everybody knows, the next inspection required for that dam is due by August 2025. So we will have to put that in for consideration for the next budget. We're still working on boatyard impoundment procedures, and we will be also working on city staff creating a personnel policy. That's something that's been on our docket for a long time, as well as updating Title II. With any updates that are needed, and this will include an ethics policy. That's something that's come to head that we should have probably already had implemented, and so we will work on getting that in place and presented to council in the next couple of months. And we've issued a couple of letters of support, one for the City of Homer 2023 PIDP application. Thankfully, they're not competing with us because they have a large project and we have a small project. And for SVT, they have 2 Denali Commission applications for their dock and Seldovia Clinic. Those are in here along with the Martin Media proposal and a letter from the Alaska DOT for the Seldovia Airport Improvements Project. And that's what I have.
Okay, no shortage of information there.
And if you want to see the manual, it's gorgeous. It's here.
That's for the dam?
So that's for the dam.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions for the city manager? It's on.
Yes, I do. Radzi, I obviously can't work that either. You said a while ago there was some interest in Jackaloff Dock. Can you give me an update on that?
Sure can. That's a great question. I did speak with a gentleman last week about Jackaloff Bay Dock. He had a few great questions and is looking to put in a proposal. So I'm hoping to see that in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, that's
That's
the story
interesting.
right now.
Okay. And then I'm pretty sure I saw that it's not, but I can't remember where it is now. The painting of this multi-purpose building was not included in the grant we got. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we have talked in-house. I don't know if it's come to the council level or yet or not, but there is some siding that has some wear and tear and you know, it's a little bit holey, or you could poke a hole through it. So it would be great. And we were dreaming big when this initial proposal was going through, if there was a way we could match and do the siding at the same time as the windows. Of course, that didn't happen. But I do think that should be that's on staff's radar for potential grant opportunities, but I think it should also be on our radar for potential capital improvement projects when it comes to utilizing some of that public works funding
Yeah, it
that's
needs
been
it.
earmarked for
The building certainly needs it badly. What other question did I have? I guess that's all. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, great report, Heidi. I guess I was totally thinking that we already had the block street sewer grant already. For some reason, I thought that was a done deal. Did we all?
Yes, we all did. This- Yes, we all did. So it's very disheartening.
Okay, so what came up was a surprise to everybody that we weren't ready. That it wasn't ready.
Yeah, that it hadn't gone, that they didn't have the construction funding available as part of the planning project. So they need to go back through and do an actual planning project. It was pieced out of the original water and sewer feasibility. And I think it was moved ahead in the docket like it was going to happen. And it missed a step. So we have to go back to the planning phase.
Okay, disappointing. Yeah, and okay, and the other question was just what Bobby just asked about the person of interest with Jackaloff. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Okay, anyone else?
Mayor Campbell.
Yep, go ahead, John.
I don't have any questions, but I have a couple of comments for the city manager. I appreciate your efforts over the last few weeks, especially towards these other grant programs, and your willingness to listen to me rant a few times a week about whatever I've heard about in town, and the willingness to see how we can work through all the things that are happening. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, if there's nothing else for the city manager on the report, we'll go to item 01, informational items not requiring action. The Seldovia Planning Commission will be discussing the commercial business district during their regularly scheduled meeting on May 3rd, 2023. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. We'll start off with Sweat.
Yeah. Heidi, thank you so much, and staff, for all the information you provided us tonight. And good work. Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna do this out of order. Keithley.
No,
Keithley.
Oh, nothing this evening. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Rojas.
Yeah, great job, everyone, all the time you're putting in. And I'll be asking for an excuse absence for the meeting on the 8th. I won't be available. But thank you all.
Thank you. Kennedy.
I'm done.
Okay. Swick.
As Heidi mentioned in our work session, we do have a couple EMTs that are taking an advanced course, and we are hosting a fundraiser next Friday to help pay for those courses and the travel and all the training involved in that. It's Cinco de Mayo, so there's going to be tacos, and Madeline's in charge of the auction, so she's got some good stuff going on. So that's next Friday at the Linwood at 6, I believe. I think it's supposed to start at 6. We're gonna have more details later. We were just trying to get the word out there so people know that it's happening. Yeah, come support your department. Casserole walk, yes. Freezer meals. I'm really excited. It's like the Halloween cake walk, but we're gonna do freezer meals that are ready to go either in the oven or the freezer. So a little more useful, I feel like. Anyway, next Friday, yes, Cinco de Mayo.
It's also Cinco de Mayo. Okay. She's not sure of the details yet. Okay, Peyton, last one up tonight.
Thanks staff. You guys are awesome. Thanks public for coming.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and from myself, thanks to the staff, thanks everyone, for the public for attending tonight. Appreciate that. Next meeting will be held on May 8th, 2023 at 6 PM. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any objections? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.